Hello friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Moana 2 in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it. All the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I am going to tell you. I am also going to give you all the information on which platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film's storyline, star cast, actors, performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you friends to watch this video. Moana 2 is a 2024 American animated musical adventure film produced by Walt Disney Animation Studios. The second film in the Moana franchise, it was directed by David Derrick Jr., Jason Hand, and Dana Ledus Miller and written by Miller and Jared Bush. Cast members: Dwayne Johnson, Ollie Crevilho, Rachel House, Tamura Morrison, Jermaine Clement, Nicole Scherzinger and Alan Tudyk reprise their roles from the first film. Set 3 years later, it follows Moana reuniting with the demigod Maui and assembling a wayfinding crew to find the lost island of Matafeo, break its curse, and reconnect the people of the ocean. A follow-up to Moana was originally developed as a miniseries for Disney+, but by February 2024 it had been reworked into a theatrical sequel. Mark Mancina and Opataya Foari, the composers and co-songwriters of the first film, returned to score and write the songs, while Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear provided additional songs. Moana 2 premiered at the Laniakea Cultural Institute in Kapolei, Hawaii, on the 21st of November, 2024, and was released by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures in the United States on the 27th of November. The film received mixed reviews from critics and grossed $1.059 billion worldwide, outgrossing its predecessor and becoming the third highest grossing film of 2024. It was nominated for Best Animated Feature Film at the 82nd Golden Globe Awards. 3 years after her adventure with the demigod Maui and the island goddess Tefiti, Moana spends her days exploring other islands near her home island of Motunui in the hope of finding people connected to the ocean. On her return from one such voyage, Moana is given the title of Tautai, or Master Wayfinder, Motunui's first Tautai in 1,000 years. In a vision, Moana's ancestor, Tautai Fraser, reveals why none of those people are connected anymore. The malicious storm god Nalo wanted power over the mortals, so he sunk a legendary island called Matafeo, which connected all of the islands, down to the depths of the ocean. Fraser further warns that the people of Motunui will go extinct in the future if Moana cannot find a way to raise Matafeo. In response to this call from the ancestors, Moana assembles a crew of people from Motunui, craftswoman Loto, historian Money, and grumpy elderly farmer Kill, alongside her pet pig and rooster, Pua and Hihia, to follow the path of a comet across the ocean towards Matafeo. Meanwhile, Maui is seeking Matafeo himself since he had a previous quarrel with Nalo, but he is captured by Nalo's enforcer, Matangi. Maui is reluctant to contact Moana, as he fears she may not survive if she comes to help. Moana and her crew are captured by the Kakamora, a tribe of savage coconut-like pirates that Moana previously encountered, who reveal that Nalo's actions against Matafeo had caused them to be disconnected from their home island. a Kakamora named Kotu helps the crew paralyze a gargantuan monster clam inside of which is Matangi's lair. While the crew finds Maui, Moana meets Matangi and learns that she is not happy serving Nalo. Matangi helps Moana escape and reunite with Maui and her friends, before sending them to where Nalo is. Maui warns that Nalo's realm is deadlier compared to the mortal realm and that fighting him will spell certain death for mere mortals. Nalo's monsters ambush the group, damaging their raft and washing them ashore on an isolated island. Moana begins to despair, but Maui encourages her to keep on going. With Moana revitalized, the group plans to have Maui raise Motufutu so that Moana can touch it, as that is the only way to stop Nalo. Her crew repairs her raft, but when the group ventures forth to confront Nalo, they encounter a gigantic storm. Moana, realizing that Nalo is trying to stop humans from breaking the curse, asks Maui to lift Motufutu enough for her to touch it. Maui begins to pull up Motufutu with his giant hook, but Nalo strips Maui of his demigod powers with a lightning bolt. Moana, in a moment of desperation, dives into the ocean to touch Motufutu underwater, but as she succeeds, Nalo's lightning kills her. Maui jumps in after her body, and with a magical chant, summons the spirits of Tortai Vesa and Moana's ancestors, including her grandmother Tala, who help revive her as a demigoddess, with Moana gaining a wayfinder's tattoo. Maui, also regaining his powers as a demigod, finally raises Motufutu and helps Moana reconnect the people with the ocean. The crew returns home to Motunui, leading a flotilla of the peoples of the ocean, and a celebration is held in Moana's honor. In a mid-credits scene, Nalo plans his revenge and is about to punish Matangi for helping Moana, when the giant crab Tamato arrives to join his cause. Awhimai Fraser as Moana, the curious daughter of village chief Tui and his wife Sina, who is chosen by the ocean to break the curse on the island of Motufutu. Fraser reprises her role in the film's Hawaiian language dubbing. Dwayne Johnson as Maui, a strong-willed shape-shifting demigod who accompanies Moana on her journey. Huey Lai Chung as Money, a member of Moana's wayfinding crew and a fan of Maui's. Rose Matafeo as Loto, a brainy but quirky craftswoman member of Moana's wayfinding crew. David Fain as Kill, a grumpy farmer and member of Moana's wayfinding crew. Awhimai Fraser as Matangi, Nalo's enforcer who controls bats. Fraser reprises her role in the film's Maori language dubbing. Khaleesi Lambert Zuda as Saimia, Moana's little sister. Tamura Morrison as Tui, Moana's father, and chief of Motunui Island. Unlike the first film, where his singing voice was done by Christopher Jackson, Morrison does his own singing. Morrison reprises his role in the film's Maori language dubbing. Nicole Scherzinger as Sina, Moana's mother and chiefess of Motunui. Rachel House as Tala, Tui's late mother and Moana's paternal grandmother, who returns as a manta ray spirit. House reprises her role in the film's Maori language dubbing. Gerald Ramsey as Tortai Vesa, Moana's ancestor. Alan Tudyk as Hihia, Moana's pet rooster. Additionally, some of Dwayne Johnson's family members have voice roles in the film, including daughters Jasmine and Tiana as members of Moana's fan club, Moana Biz, and his mother Atamavia Johnson as a villager. Tofiga Fepulia voices the storm god and main antagonist Nalo in the mid-credits scene, which also features the giant coconut crab Tamato from the first film in December 2020. During a Disney Investor Day meeting, Walt Disney Animation Studios Chief Creative Officer Jennifer Lee announced that a long-form musical comedy series titled Moana, the series, based on the 2016 film of the same name, was in development at the studio and set for release on Disney and in 2023. The series was to consist of 5 episodes. By August 2021, it was reported that Osnat Shura would once again serve as producer. In January 2022, it was announced that David Derrick Jr., storyboard artist for the first film, would serve as the writer and director. The series entered development simultaneously with the live-action remake of Moana according to Jared Bush, a writer of the film and screenplay writer of the 2016 animated film. Dana Ledus Miller came onto the series in early 2023 as a consulting writer, having finished writing the live-action remake with Bush, and turned in several revisions for the series. According to Bush, the director and the writers repeatedly received feedback during development to the effect of, "We love this story. Why is it not going on the biggest screen you can possibly imagine?" In January 2024, Walt Disney Studios president Alan Bergman informed the team that they needed to shift rapidly from making a 5-episode streaming series to a second Moana feature film. This last-minute story pivot was possible because nearly all the actual animation work for Disney animated films is not performed until the final year before the release date. Everything before that is development. In February 2024, Disney CEO Bob Iger officially announced that the series had been reworked into a theatrical sequel titled Moana 2, with Derek and Shura remaining attached to the project. Iger explained that this occurred after Disney executives saw early footage. "We were impressed with what we saw and knew it deserved a theatrical release." By the release of the first trailer in May, Jason Hand and Dana Ledus Miller were confirmed as co-directors alongside Derek, while Christina Chen and Yvette Marino were revealed to replace Shura as the film's producers. Shortly after the announcement that the series was being repurposed into a theatrical feature film, Awhimai Fraser and Dwayne Johnson were confirmed to reprise their respective roles as Moana and Maui. Johnson later confirmed that he had been involved with the project since its conception, including its development, stating, "I can't wait for fans to see the film, the technology, the effects, cutting edge. We all really went for it. We thought if we're gonna make a sequel to something so beloved, let's really go for it." Several more cast members were unveiled at the Annecy International Animation Film Festival, including Tamura Morrison and Nicole Scherzinger reprising their roles as Moana's parents from the first film. New additions include Khaleesi Lambert-Zuda as Moana's new sister, and Rose Matafeo, David Fain, and Huey Lai Chung as members of Moana's wayfinding crew. According to Crivelho, this film was the first time that a Disney princess has been allowed to age. When Crivelho returned to the recording studio after the first film to record lines for Disney fireworks shows, Disney on Ice, and Disney Lego Princess, she was repeatedly asked to raise her vocal pitch to sound like herself as a teenager at age 16. She was delighted when the film's directors allowed her to record Moana's lines at age 19 with her natural voice as a woman in her early 20s. Animation was handled at Walt Disney Animation Studios' Vancouver studio when it was being developed as a series, while pre-production and storyboarding took place at the Burbank studio. It is the first feature film to be made at the Vancouver studio. At the Annecy International Animation Film Festival, it was revealed that veterans Mark Henn and Eric Goldberg would supervise a team of apprentices of hand-drawn animators for Maui's tattoos. Goldberg was a supervising animator for Mini Maui for the first film. Disney Animation's decision to largely outsource the animation work for Moana 2 to its new Vancouver studio was highly controversial. In May 2025, the Animation Guild published a report estimating that as a result, California had lost as much as 817 jobs, $87 million in wages, and $178 million in state gross domestic product. Mark Mancina and Opate Iafouari returned to compose the film score, while Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear contributed songs, replacing Lin-Manuel Miranda from the first film. Barlow and Bear are the youngest and the first all-female songwriting duo to write the songs for a Disney film. Walt Disney Music president Tom MacDougall recruited Barlow and Bear in the fall of 2021, after hearing the quality of their work on the unofficial Bridgerton musical, and about a year later, in 2022, they began to work with the production team on writing songs. Miranda assisted by providing Barlow with a stack of books on how to write lyrics for musical films. Bear focused on studying the existing Moana score, with its Polynesian instrumentation, and learning how to write songs with that musical vocabulary. Crivello stated that having Barlow and Bear, two young women, help voice Moana's story, which is a young woman finding her way, I couldn't think of a better duo than Barlow and Bear. This is a new part of my voice. This film digs into these low notes in these times of indecision when we don't know what we are supposed to do next. There's a lot of deeper layers to these songs. Miranda later explained that the reason he was not asked to return for the sequel came down to a matter of timing. He was a longtime fan of The Lion King, 1994, and desperately wanted to work on Mufasa, The Lion King, 2024, but director Barry Jenkins had to first wait 6 months for him. Miranda was simply too busy in the second half of 2021 with finishing the songs for Encanto, 2021, finishing up the editing of his first feature film as a director, and having to do press interviews to promote Encanto and 2 other films. By the time Miranda was done with Encanto interviews, he had to get started on Mufasa right away in early 2022. Meanwhile, Disney Animation moved forward with Barlow and Bear, and they were already cooking by the time the decision was made to turn the streaming series into a feature-length sequel. On the 7th of November, 2024, Disney revealed a full tracklist, along with the first single Beyond by Crivello, which was billed as a spiritual sequel to the original Moana anthem, How Far I'll Go. On the 11th of November, Johnson revealed his song Can I Get a Chihu? As a female empowerment song for Moana's character, which follows the tune of Maui's original You're Welcome. The original motion picture soundtrack was released on the 22nd of November. Beyond and Can I Get a Chihu? Were nominated for the 2024 Hollywood Music in Media Award for Best Original Song in an Animated Film, and Beyond has been nominated for a 2025 Society of Composers and Lyricists Award for Outstanding Original Song for a Comedy or Musical Visual Media Production. Miller and Crivello discussed their work on the film at D23 2024 in Anaheim, California. Moana 2 had its world premiere at the Laniakea Cultural Institute in Kapolei, Hawaii on the 21st of November, 2024, and was released in theaters in the United States on the 27th of November, 2024. It became the 44th highest-grossing movie of all time. The first trailer for the film was released on the 29th of May, 2024, after debuting at CinemaCon the month before. The trailer earned over 178 million views in its first 24 hours across all platforms, breaking a new record as the most-watched trailer of all time for a Disney animated film, a record previously held by Frozen 2 and Pixar's Inside Out 2, the latter of which the trailer was attached to in the theaters. A sneak peek of the film was screened at the 2024 Annecy International Animation Film Festival on the 14th of June, 2024. On the 9th of August, 2024, Crivello and Johnson appeared at the Disney Entertainment Showcase at the 2024 D23 Expo in Anaheim, California to promote the film and release a new trailer, which was released online shortly thereafter. During the D23 presentation, Ho performed a new song from the film, We're Back, accompanied by Polynesian dancers. Johnson also used the presentation to announce a new live-action Monster Jam film that he would be producing with Disney. Like the first film, Moana 2 was released in European countries with the title and protagonist's name changed to Vaiana due to a trademark conflict. 4 special dubbings in Polynesian languages were released for the sequel, in Hawaiian, Maori, Tahitian, and Samoan. The first 3 languages had previously received a dubbing of the first film, while a Samoan dubbing of the sequel was released without the original film having been dubbed. Ho reprised the lead role in the Hawaiian dubbing of the sequel, like she did in the first film, while several other members of the cast reprised their roles in the Maori dubbing. Of the 6 films dubbed into Maori so far, Moana 2 is the first to have premiered in New Zealand simultaneously in English and Maori. This marks the 3rd time in Disney's history a dubbing in an indigenous language is released at the same time as regular dubbings. The first such instance happened with the Tahitian dubbing of Moana, released in 2016 in French Polynesia. The second was the Sami dubbing of Frozen 2, released in 2019 in Finland, Norway, and Sweden. Moana 2 was released as a digital download on the 28th of January, 2025, began streaming on Disney and on the 12th of March, 2025, and was released on 4K Ultra HD, Blu-ray, and DVD on the 18th of March. In the United Kingdom, Moana 2 debuted at number 1 on the official film chart based on digital downloads, remaining at the top for a second consecutive week with over 33,000 copies sold. In the United States, it topped both the iTunes and Fandango at Home charts for the week ending February 2. The film maintained the number 1 position on both charts in its second week. For 2025, Moana 2 ranked 7th overall on Fandango at Home's digital sales and rentals chart. In physical media for 2025, Moana 2 ranked 15th on the top-selling titles on disc, DVD and Blu-ray, of 2025, according to Circana Video Scan. The film achieved a sales index of 32.61 compared to the year's top-selling title. Blu-ray formats made up 44% of total unit sales, while 4K Ultra HD accounted for 4%. On Disney+, Moana 2 garnered 27.3 million views in its first 5 days, becoming the 3rd highest launch ever for a theatrical film on the platform and the best launch for a Walt Disney Animation Studios title since Encanto in December 2021. Nielsen Media Research, which records streaming viewership on some U.S. television screens, reported that the film accumulated 1.9 billion minutes of watch time between March 10-16, making it the most streamed film that week. Moana 2 was subsequently the 6th most streamed title overall in March 2025, with 3.9 billion minutes viewed. Between January and June 2025, the film reached a total of 7.227 billion minutes streamed, ranking as the most streamed film during that period. In December 2025, Disney announced that it was the most watched film of the year on Disney+, with more than 80 million views. Nielsen later reported that Moana 2 was the 2nd most streamed film overall in 2025, with 9.43 billion minutes of watch time. Moana 2 grossed $460.4 million in the United States and Canada, and $598.8 million in other territories, for a total of $1.059 billion worldwide. Deadline Hollywood calculated the film's net profit as $415 million, accounting for production budgets, marketing, talent participations and other costs. box office grosses, television and streaming, and home media revenues, making Moana 2 the second most profitable film of 2024. In the United States and Canada, Moana 2 was originally projected to gross $105,115 million over the 5-day Thanksgiving weekend. After making $57.8 million on its first day, including $13.8 million from Tuesday night previews, both the highest ever for a Walt Disney animation film and Thanksgiving week release, 5-day estimates were raised to $175,200 million. It then made a record $28 million on Thanksgiving, nearly doubling the 2019 film Frozen 2's previous high of $14.9 million. It went on to debut to $139.8 million, and a total of $225 million over the 5 days, breaking Frozen 2's $130.3 million record for the best opening weekend for a Walt Disney animation film and a Thanksgiving weekend release, as well as nearly matching the entire domestic run of the first film, $248.7 million. The worldwide 5-day gross of $389 million surpassed the 2023 film The Super Mario Bros. Movie as the highest such opening for an animated film. In its second weekend the film made $52 million, a drop of 62.8%, remaining in first. In its third weekend, the film retained the top spot again, grossing $26.6 million, dropping 48% from its second weekend. The film was finally dethroned in its fourth weekend, grossing $13.1 million and finishing in fourth place. On the 19th of January, 2025, the film crossed the $1 billion threshold, becoming the third film released in 2024 to do so. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 60% of 245 critics' reviews are positive. The website's consensus reads, "Riding high on a wave of stunning animation even when its story runs adrift, Moana 2 isn't as inspired as the original but still delights as a colorful adventure." Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 58 out of 100, based on 50 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A and to F scale, down from the first's A, while those surveyed by PostTrack gave it an 89% overall positive score, with 64% saying they would definitely recommend it. Writing for Cinema Blend, Dirk Libby praised Moana 2 as a really good movie, but also noted that it was too obvious that the film had been originally written as a much longer television series and then trimmed down for release as a feature film. Libby pointed out that the film introduces viewers to several interesting characters like Matangi, Loto, Kill, and Money, but fails to explore their backstories, the kind of subplots that would be exactly where I would start to cut if asked to condense several television scripts into a film script. Rajan Simonpillai, Globe and Mail, found the music flat and uninspired. Alison Wilmore, Vulture, argued the film suffers from a lack of tension, part of Disney's recent trend away from colorful villains in favor of softer, internal conflicts. Owen Gleiberman, Variety, called it an okay movie and efficient enough to be a holiday hit, though far more product-like than its predecessor. After receiving an unexpected call from her wayfinding ancestors, Moana must journey to the far seas of Oceania and into dangerous, long-lost waters for an adventure unlike anything she's ever faced. 3 years after her adventure with the demigod Maui, Dwayne Johnson, and the island goddess Tefiti, Moana, Oliakravalho, spends her days exploring other islands near her home island of Motunui in the hope of finding people connected to the ocean. Moana climbs to the top of the island's highest peak and blows a conch shell, hoping to get an answer in return. But all she hears is silence. Moana is now a wayfinder, a term for a person with a strong sense of direction, and the ancient Polynesian practice of navigation. In different sites across the island, Moana finds artifacts that depict that a long time ago, there were people on other islands out there. Moana brings the artifacts back home to Motunui. Moana lives with her father Tui, Tamura Morrison, chief of Motunui Island, mother Sina, Nicole Scherzinger, and sister Simea, Khaleesi Lambert Zuda. Tortai Vasa was the last great navigator of Motunui and wanted to connect their island to all other islands in the ocean. Tortai's title, which was last given 1,000 years ago to Vasa. Tui proposes that Moana accepts the title of Tortai. In the moment that Moana accepts the title, a huge lightning strike hits Moana directly and she is transported into a vision. In a vision, Moana's ancestor, Tortai Vasa, Gerald Ramsay, reveals why none of those people are connected anymore. The malicious storm god Nalo wanted power over the mortals, so he sunk a legendary island called Motuftu, which connected all islands, down to the depths of the ocean. Tortai further warns that the people of Motunui will go extinct in the future if Moana cannot find a way to raise Motuftu. Tortai says that a fire in the sky will guide Moana to Motuftu. He says that Tefiti was the beginning, but she must brave the storm. Motuftu was an ancient island where the channels of the oceans converged, thus connecting the people of the entire seas. A comet passes over Motunui and this is the fire in the sky that Tortai spoke about. Moana assembles a crew of people from Motunui, craftswoman Loto, Rose Matafeo, for boat repairs, historian Money, Hualalai Chung, and grumpy elderly farmer Kill, David Fane, as they would need to eat more than fish, alongside her pet pig and rooster, Pua and Hihia, Alan Tudike, to follow the path of a comet across the ocean towards Motuftu. Meanwhile, Maui is seeking Motuftu himself since he had a previous quarrel with Nalo, but he is captured by Nalo's enforcer, Maitangi, Awhimai Fraser. Nalo can control the bats. Maitangi warns Maui that if he tries to connect the island with Motuftu, Nalo, a god, would be upset and would hurt not just Maui, but Moana as well. Maui is reluctant to contact Moana, as he fears she may not survive if she comes to help. Moana is helped in her quest by the spirit of the ocean, and her grandmother, who comes to visit her in the form of a giant manta ray. Midway through their journey, the comet vanishes. The boat is then caught in a current and loses all sense of direction. Moana and her crew are captured by the Kakamora, a tribe of savage coconut-like pirates that Moana previously encountered, who reveal that Nalo's actions against Motuftu had caused them to be disconnected from their home island. The Kakamora make a deal in which Moana will help defeat a giant clam which is blocking the Kakamora's way, and in exchange for them to lead Moana and her crew to Motuftu. A Kakamora named Kotu helps the crew paralyze a gargantuan monster clam inside of which is Maitangi's lair. As a result, Moana and her boat are swallowed whole by the clam and into its belly. While the crew finds Maui, Moana meets Maitangi and learns that she is not happy serving Nalo. Maitangi says that Nalo trapped her too and if Moana defeats him, she will be set free. Maitangi helps Moana escape and reunite with Maui and her friends, before sending them to where Nalo is. The plan is for Maui to lift the island from the ocean depths and for Moana to step on it to break Nalo's curse. Maui warns that Nalo's realm is deadlier compared to the mortal realm and that fighting him will spell certain death for mere mortals. Nalo's monsters ambush the group, damaging their raft and washing them ashore on an isolated island. Moana begins to despair, but Maui encourages her to keep on going. With Moana revitalized, the group plans to have Maui raise Motuftu so that Moana can touch it, as that is the only way to stop Nalo. Her crew repairs her raft, but when the group ventures forth to confront Nalo, they encounter a gigantic storm. Moana, realizing that Nalo is trying to stop humans from breaking the curse, asks Maui to lift Matafeo while they keep Nalo distracted and his storm focused on the humans. The ploy works as Moana converts the boat's mast into a gliding wing with the help of Loto. This helps them keep ahead of the storms conjured by Nalo. As Maui begins to pull up Matafeo with his giant hook, Nalo strips Maui of his demigod powers with a lightning bolt. Moana, in a moment of desperation, dives into the ocean to touch Matafeo underwater, and just as she succeeds, Nalo's lightning kills her. As a result, Nalo's curse is lifted and the storm vanishes. Maui jumps in after her body, and with a magical chant, summons the spirits of Awhimai Fraser and Moana's ancestors, including her grandmother Tala, Rachel House, who help revive her as a demigodess, with Moana gaining a wayfinder's tattoo. Maui, having also regained his powers as a demigod, finally raises Matafeo and helps Moana reconnect the people with the ocean. The crew returns home to Motunui, leading a flotilla of the peoples of the ocean, and a celebration is held in Moana's honor. Nalo plans his revenge and is about to punish Matangi for helping Moana, when the giant crab Tamato arrives to join his cause. I didn't walk out of Moana 2 humming new tunes like what could be better than this or get lost songs. I only remembered actually being in the movie thanks to their inclusion in the end credits. Instead, How Far I'll Go and You're Welcome were lodged in my brain, thanks to multiple clumsy callbacks. Moana 2 is a lesser film than the 2016 original in practically every way, but its inferiority is most striking in its songs, which lack the musicality and charm of the first film's soundtrack. Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't return to write the music for this outing, and his absence is more keenly felt than if Dwayne Johnson didn't reprise his role as Maui. Most of the new tracks are bland compositions that thankfully don't attempt to ape their predecessors in style, except for Can I Get a Chihu? This showcase for Maui sounds like it's going for Miranda's signature sound, including a bit of rapping from Johnson. Yet it's somehow even worse than Johnson's early effort on Wyclef Jean's It Doesn't Matter. But does the descent in quality from the soundtrack and the whole movie actually matter? Disney will still make hundreds of millions of dollars, that they wouldn't have made had they proceeded with the original plan for this to be a Disney and TV series, while holiday weekend families crowd theaters for more adventures with Moana and Maui. There probably won't be too many complaints. This isn't a worthy successor to Moana, which was top-tier Disney, but it's not grating in the way that the worst animated movies can be. There are some fun scenes, a few giggles, and some impressive animation, but Moana 2 is dead in the water in comparison. It feels like a direct-to-Disney and release, the 21st century equivalent of The Return of Jafar and The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. While Moana centered on the journey of its heroine beyond the reef to save her island, Moana 2 simply has Moana, again voiced by Auli Cravalho, going, "Father." She discovers evidence of other civilizations, and she is eager to find them, so she must break a curse by landing on a mysterious, storm-surrounded island. This time, she embarks on the dangerous journey with a crew in addition to her usual team of porcine pet Tio and idiot chicken Hihi, Alan Tudyk quirky shipbuilder Loto, Rose Matafeo, sweet storyteller Money, Huey Lai Chung, and grumpy, aging farmer Kill, David Fane. Of course, Maui and his mini-moving Maui tattoo show up again too, because Disney doesn't want to start a pint-sized riot. In addition to those newcomers, Moana 2 introduces Moana's younger sister, Saimia, Khaleesi Lambert Zuda, a dead ringer for young Moana in the first film. I suppose she's there to deepen Mona's ties to her island when she's about to go on a mission she may never return from, but she mostly exists to up the movie's cuteness factor and appeal to the younger audience as Mona has aged 3 years since we last saw her. Saimia was created to be the human equivalent of the O emoji, all big eyes and bursting heart, and it feels a little manipulative, but goddamn, she's adorable. The screenplay from Jared Bush and Dana Ledus Miller feels more like strung-together set pieces than a cohesive plot. Moana 2 takes a page from Marvel's dog-eared playbook and has a mid-credits sequence that feels very much like Avengers: Age of Ultron in how it teases the larger franchise. Yet with this approach, Moana 2 doesn't feel substantial enough to stand on its own. As much as Disney is known for its princesses, it is also known for its villains, and Moana 2 doesn't develop its antagonists with any depth, leaving the film feeling listless. It's not like the last time Moana says at one point in this sequel, and yeah, no shit. Moana 2 attempts to expand on its predecessor, adding more characters and bigger adventures. However, even beyond its subpar songs, it lacks the spirit and strength of the original movie. Some time ago, the Walt Disney Company learned that there is significant money to be made in the pursuit of diversity and representation. And while these stories deserve to be told, few have been told as soullessly and as poorly as Moana 2. I don't particularly enjoy lining Disney's coffers, and I don't have kids, so naturally, I missed the boat on Moana when it came out back in 2016. And I similarly missed Moana 2 when it came out in late November 2024. The original Moana is one of Disney's best efforts to better represent non-white cultures, or, depending on who you ask, its most successful operation so far at finding new consumers and selling them mugs, t-shirts, and plushies. A sequel was inevitable. Yet the studio dragged its feet, seemingly uncertain about where to progress with a story that has so many obvious next steps. After work stalled on a Moana streaming series, the project was retooled as a cinematic sequel, and you can tell. The characters are all bouncy, exuberant, and ironic, the plot is rudderless and boring, and the story doesn't feel properly resolved, instead hoping that fans will wait for Moana 3. The movie is worse than its predecessor by virtually every metric, save for that its music was written by someone who knows a word, any word, to rhyme with island. The first Moana was a through-and-through success for Walt Disney Animation Studios. It was a more mixed bag among actual Polynesians, with controversy over Maui's characterization as a big, obese man and Carla Mila of Itangata calling the character Shrek of Polynesia, a pot-bellied, barrel-chested man-baby, with eyes too close together, pupils perfectly aligned with his widespread nostrils in nice savage symmetry. Here is a no-fish, necklace wonder with large lips and an ooga-booga mask-like mouth. Maui's design is a reminder that, at the end of the day, Moana is a white Westerner's perspective of Polynesian culture, made by the two white dudes who created The Little Mermaid and Aladdin. They were not born in Polynesia, did not grow up with the sea at their doorstep, and have no stake in the stories and history of these people. Moana was only ever going to be mediocre, because you never get the sense that this is a story these people deserved to tell. It can never be culturally authentic. As a result, Moana can only ever aspire to be a good pastiche, a successful but shameless attempt at cashing in on Polynesian culture and history while also delivering that culture and history to a mass audience ready to buy pua plushies and Maui action figures. Don't get me wrong, there is goodness in the effort of doing that, and undoubtedly there will be children who grow up looking at Moana, seeing that she looks like them, and feeling inspired that they can be who they want to be, go on adventures, and save the world. That's a worthy cause. But this was not John Musker and Ron Clement's story to tell. Disney made some changes behind the scenes to make sure that Moana 2 felt like a better representation of Maori people and their culture. Muska and Clements are out, off to colonize the seas of retirement, and of the 3 directors replacing them, David Derrick Jr., Jason Hand, and Dana Ledus Miller, 2 of them have Samoan heritage. We see more of the islander culture, and there are even more Maori deities and a bigger focus on seafaring, or wayfinding. So why does the entire movie feel suffused with white perspective? Every character talks with the same audience-tested fourth wall-breaking giddiness, like they were both in 2015 rather than hundreds of years ago. In the original Moana, only Maui, Dwayne Johnson, spoke in anachronisms, quips, modern irony, and asides to the audience. Here, every character speaks like that, making Moana 2 feel less like a genuine attempt to capture a culture's historical past and more like a lame, homogeneous, TikTok cash grab. The mercilessly modern screenplay hammers every character into the rigid form of a cliché Disney hero or sidekick, effectively colonizing the world of Moana with the slick evil of market-tested, focus-grouped capitalism. The character designs also all look the same, like they walked right out of Pixar's Lightyear or Elio or Disney's Strange World. This film follows Moana, or Yikravalho, as she attempts to undo a curse that prevented her people from connecting with other islanders for 1,000 years. For some reason, this involves dredging an island up from the bottom of the ocean. Without that island, the disparate Polynesian peoples will always be fragmented and don't know how to travel the ocean, which feels racist and sort of plays into the ignorant savages trope the first film narrowly avoided. It's never even clear why exactly Moana needs to physically touch this island to lift the curse, despite the film explicitly telling me exactly what was happening in every scene. The stakes of the climax and rules of this curse are super unclear. The character's ultimate goal, then, is to connect the islands and go discover more islands, as though the best story Disney could give the Maori people was a white Western idealist colonialist adventure narrative. The frustrating part is that actual Polynesian history supports the idea that these seafaring peoples had a prolonged period where they didn't build ships and explore. Moana is actually rooted in historical fact. Termed the Long Pause, this happened shortly after the Lapita people explored and inhabited West Polynesia and Melanesia. 1,000 years passed before the Polynesians continued exploring eastward, a period that continues to perplex historians and that forms the foundation of Moana's story. Moana 2 retcons this long pause into a hero's journey frozen in time by a mystical curse, which would be an interesting story if it actually explained why and how the other island people stopped building ships, too. If the first Moana doubled as a tech demo for Disney's great new water animation, Moana 2 is a demo for how much slime Disney can put in a motion picture. Not since the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards has this much slime been on screen at once. Characters are constantly slipping in goop or getting sloppily sneezed upon. A scene in which a slimy blobfish slithers over Moana's face after she's paralyzed by poison darts feels like fetish content that children should not be exposed to. The animation this time is noticeably worse, basically straight-to-video quality, though the bar for straight-to-video animation has dramatically risen since the days of Mulan 2 and Aladdin and the King of Thieves. The physics are totally off, characters fly and flip through the air weightlessly, and Moana swings around her ship's mast like a tetherball. Maui at one point leaps into the water with all the weight of an acorn. I believe the directors think their audience is stupid. Scenes are shot, staged, and edited as though they are allergic to stillness. The villain song sung by a mystical bat lady, Maitangi, Awhimai Fraser, is remarkable. It's the only song in Moana 2 where the performer is clearly giving it 110%, but the animation feels like it doesn't believe in the vocal performance at all, stuffing so much theme park ride noise into the sequence that it's impossible to take in the words, much less appreciate the performance or learn anything about the character. Every 7 seconds seem purpose-built to go viral on social media, and every scene feels like it's competing for my attention. For a project that took 8 years to realize, the script is atrocious. I admire that a third of the film takes place in a giant clam, but that's where my appreciation begins and ends. You learn immediately that Moana is a master wayfinder now because all the characters tell us, constantly. A new character, Awhimai Fraser, is retconned so hard into the Moana lore in ways that make zero sense. Bat Lady doesn't even get a payoff to her character. You never learn whether she's actually a villain or not, you never learn what her real motivation is, and at the very end, you get an embarrassing League of Our Own style tease for Moana 3. Source: Disney, 2024. It's super unclear how much time has elapsed between films, because now the entire culture of Moana's Island is a proud seafaring people that built multiple boats. With what fibers did they craft those cloth sails, yet Pua is still a piglet. I'm pretty miffed that none of these new characters died, to create stakes in this high-stakes adventure story, and I thought that they might kill off a new coconut warrior character, but alas, he survives. Speaking of dead characters, Moana in this film has basically become the ghost whisperer, because her dead grandma, Rachel House, hangs out with her constantly, which feels totally emotionally hollow and undermines her very upsetting death from the first film. Moana 2 is as soulless a cash grab as they come. It's an awful movie made for babies, and literally every minute of the film was a challenge to sit through. There's way too much slime and too much noise, and the characters constantly tell you exactly what's going on in every scene in case you're on your phone or are otherwise too stupid to work it out. However, there are actually a few bright spots here. The first is that, unlike in Moana, the actors all mostly do their own singing. It's a joy to hear Tamura Morrison's smooth buttery paternal voice in the opening songs. Also, there's a bit where Rose Matafeo has to sing very quickly, and it's quite good. Additionally, the coconut people are very kind to He in this film and treat him like an emperor, which, as a He fanboy, I appreciate. I'll be extremely upset if anything bad happens to that dumb little chicken in Moana 3.
Skjeskifbea, jobna fehihesa, stev, aruknemen galmis gifsnem lefsinere hihustnjach ireval viptan huege, helen shida. Stukjaukstina, ilfjukirevnis gipsutse høy fiestem suvereuktib bezet, veslo. Smosingen høyne sjovunøste virusaptumsen seromerumste husjosdesni. Ngengisen veredutgiltue mosektai, anømnikalna, statsitsøfet. Eistopsjaur buifeiluskararet. Avela. Splastic august suustia with our own foin or oisiechnin is irvenin on your ex o wilk as a we last even snoxet irachna, seon stamusna mials stamustiobset. Worth this is chandelash des umlefet was in a mere veiler stilna, sebi both the emivumo fornesni. Mach jetzt a ark shachgasilos as ustenum. Mlef surf north heading is aspire ever snyamet not no elo healing sure meal to sleep stew, hilnits noch gehuplasnga, swahlostier, narkted dusuk, arp soup to good machgebilig gesiep ze mlef sin the siskerachted when it keeps. Sviavasi, solid up, askerachga European queen the follicht yamiet at Dothiana, Erotsish nevlis gets yachs in this gets eirkus, when we, Siatsiskerach queens even untet femisturma. Still gifbelit siauptei, slaes volksut farget dit ze afstobdu, stuurboek beslampt leeft dat lopich mire vies waar bezitten lazen verslag geacht niet landzig, smlef niet wipt spalen ze meacht amla heeg na husni. Hofies neusnetten zlathus, eens soos. Hier thunem op zich laatsen we afgeven is er abmenstek wie, sneer even dat na, Sine shevis du moi rust on a levenui, ston on a levelust gazish the on a levenui. Hast gerach gehabt vor ich bestecken wiesen soll die Geld. Snesur is gempt dat sie obne rollen mit is nicht ahus noch der sie, sie wärst los, hast gerach wien. Hilfnis noch, salest ist gerach gelose gebrandet ne vier was samen sie an der die minelui. Snednes nicht ibn schief bei am obstat. Malkneas den is selbst läuft für das ist der am der. So schürft es ist wirks, sie alle research die das ist doch drauf. Nicht der am offen ist ich möchte dich als lief nie sie wenn die muss noller wirklich lebt sich missen essen was sie will. Hast gerecht bleiben ich ihnen los ne auf mit ihr schief selbst am. So wenn ich jetzt so besuch mis ist das noch ist das nicht und ja auch mit stamm müssen gefasst. Los das ne auf wenn die Wilpen sollte ich als lief ne schemen ait. Snessig nicht natürlich nach auf Dinge wie gelegt sie am auf mit der wüsten nicht osil nur jetzt nicht. Aber kaum sie sie erfahren auch ja nachdem ihr Geld abgeht sie mehr lassen müssen leben. Senleits ist gestellt wird das ist steht so schatznis. Steht wicht ist nicht oder nicht sich gerade viele ja. Noch eine was ihr wurde was over das nicht spielt noch auf der Joam. Aber das ist halt sam special and I was new sen il sich ihr way durch 12 half sich gerecht. Foil durch das gesiff. Sweet wenn ich nicht alle neuesten Lim was jetzt nissen sie will gestammert zu eine schemen away die wirst so far bedeutet. Ist der Loch wie die wirst erst zielig gesehen. So will was ist wenn sie mir eine schemen ait. Wird selbst gibt und der schnurleuchtet nicht noch geschicht als Leifstaden sie auch ja bezahler ab sie shit fast sind immer böse das Schiff voll wie mir als stehen nicht. Noch beziehen sie wollen nicht der gut üben ich will sie nicht noch was ist gerecht. Snaubt an irks noch neben mir als Stammsitzer, so was jost dich nicht in das Sohn. Hast eben ne Schwimmen ist auch nicht ihn sit mir als Stammwach auf für mit des Üsten ne Schemen als so wind irks ihn sit auf für mit Gäste sit auf den surfen. Wisst, special is lebt so wie ne ja ne auf Nelps gelust Gäste für Rots nicht serven in der Plupstu. Sag doch ist sie mehr in surfen ist Haus nicht auch mal sitzen noch der Üsten. Heroes sind wenn ich jeden Waffels Mof dat net Heroes sich selber bis zu wenig nicht dat der Jürg sucht sie in Heroes geht wenig nix in der Schiene Loch berufen Sach solchen so Waffe. A Schiene Lampen a Schiene Loch selbst die Wachen in der Dolps gell wie ich dich will das Fall los in der sit so mollen nicht. Skafel Heroes sich nicht ist wie los quasi an Holps geht ne special in die geht auf der Jürg moller bedacht so wie mir wie sieht der ja jetzt doch passiert sich in der Schiene Loch los hat sich nach nicht erst surfen. Wees er an schnefflet Celine welk Celine selbst ja was wohl wie wir mit wirklich in City Roads zebet snella vaxi dökne snella it ken kusi net lokne mis lasis gerecht. Heil na wis sag sit was lurnes kamal get was jetzt nie sie wenning in versucht o will kasge im gelastil selbst ken läuft ja sit sag get viel snella sit stil gese füstinen mil kasge ja weil wie wenn's die over an lift surfet wirft sich die Wasser und geht nicht sehr verstoßen sie sehr lief still wenn der Schwere warst du war hören nicht ich nehm gar viel sehr wohl so wie eine Schiene Loch sitzt schnell aus hat du eine Schwere wenn wir oben nur fahren lernen ich erst laufen ist eine sie mal so Zeichen so drauf sind ja du nicht kenn ich nur vor ich ich never Platz sag du ist möchte ich sagen wir hier an so laufen lift Slow schneerst zien sit oile oreich als es ja was ja auf wird ja meestet geloos los ja sit es gerecht Mazil is de fact work zich with dit zegt ik am wel wie il sit de win voor lo wouldn't is aan el il wit effe ik ja so er heen sit je shit of em of dit je with niet gerecht hier vet ze maar hier nirksen om il silsem Maar schach kost is ze niet om Miele galom net sag wo gerot sich se schlachter ach ist met de neuinesch de gal sel liefus den mich im staat gal skip sich gerach hier vet ei sneido ist ja sene inner an speuk sinner kann nicht wips nes noch nie ja mil nur an monisch gerein ich was der nach in der Arm nicht pfiffen so als du nicht über wird gal sene dich nicht hier wo so fit setzen nicht mir ist du skost gerach hier vet Feest heb zich jou de psui fassel if je me ach niet zo jou was. Matafeo, Nere Fis no Sequifagibna Zistadirom Naviaredna, Ashlachgan Light Veromisiu. Stister Henuemus Fahmatvus, Alim Sudelanodna, Snahanasish, I wish Kiret Diviet, Mugnisil Rupsit Karadir Thutna, Snamaster Vazis Siana Luchut, Swaras Nemelknakasam. Ashlachgan Lukik Birom Venetius Nesir every step of Galflafus, and Umtelosh Gamus Nisit Nyahipsish must be a mean sit. Latitude zeros Nemelknorvna Exam North on Subsit up. So either was that. Slow with Viesna, Sishnevdenoik, he was no way to even get that the absning leafna, Mutgalskolish that niece, and Tangical power who energlish evil with il disladna, starting out with the fairness and luxury, Morim Technut. Sigifniska Ilamna Ziashal Aufia was either Snado Samos dear Sichna Schlacht in your village Lola weird Sichna Schlacht machine Lochnoning Shacht that met the Silmish the Wolf Seskis, sheets after gave was the observe in Munich, Slazer was a Gesnetho Iller Schlachti Bevenekti. Last just Puzzit Loki see the roads as it that's nested egg of Enwisuk, a Huidemi was new Gavail as a winum. Loki see the weird Sichna zeros to the Getsu and Vahna. That's so that they said the power on it, a gene of Nino on a wit. Nidal not him almost ill at this year, who's used the hours that out him, a schlach machine locked for it kept in itself. Ya was it and yet it would need that, started Yammer was in as it's Ilam. Flam Yalksam of a gun and a spell shall the wooden obself and chef and Ziri. Here's the mischievasian is Lord Son Derps Yaubsich the Pnyala if a psolwish. They get to a wish to the Vietnam to sexual rap. Still left off, a gene lock for Kershis Kirak and Yellochas Yangativa Alimalach and Nam Siva. Gave us in a shears hour Kiraxi, I'm a very solution to Snashini Loch Bosch Gang on the gap skim home as okay. So I reached the shame in a in sit low wolf Seskas Earth and Earth as a winner surf. Snelladu Marvis, so we net, so was you a new in all my sabin tears of his dreams this had all fierce. Eerst en meer veilig of ja possessief in het zo zeven. Hier zijn we of die wolves naf dat niet behetsen. Zoals er willen voor liefden zou die rood zitten. Neer op een ziel daar zit al. Geen oranje, sneeuw is is maar boven zit graag. Last night logisch gestammen is het loos hier zo steeds nog. Serious in meer zijn we nog loods goed va. Spets can save boy nemus that the roads to the observer with the slaben tussen ilgemis, Steve's it gars good reach today. Lobest of is a lokies as Sia sharpna, Stashi, Snam Nilesna, the recent queen in after office and the share all of Seskis to MC, saw you in on your nebit. Oh, the schlacht jou and on Nezir ever habits the fat sepsine sit when obsi and a monish rate. Office next is last wish, event in Islamic in a wish and similar missiana, needs is not in last wish, Nick Aplamic in a winum not but sima, Hilarish anus, stick fat nudiana, the foxines sitting in a lotion illich is the pnudia. Wish the nums a loch that nail silos at loch nip for whiff, slow with first it's 0 seed loudna. Na shit and as if ever nice to serve out was doing when the DM was in amtlich fingers siret that in a lean of machine sit low with. Mas. Even monish the rate with nerves not it rips at scaldi, small soft was it no even vi, avela. Such never a given as it home is that, a sensitive stain on naps house, master with them. Station, Aina, look is in this new now as a son of yacht solid galtonsni. Seltsilling leaf from life and reveal, threading at the Senegasnas if will have written so used and snellips the often nervous losity, says nerves the often zine sits the stamza. Nurse they not nuts with financial nuts with leaf and so used and sure the sit the play. Sash narfish all at the east the wahan in Orshal of it, such never galstamir of leaf that's no east the derklimas of Nicobiel play but so long or she was get used and Stolp vissi höken at the sea presse vegas nars scaloms leaf limbs with Eleanor net shop the rajmor fiel nirks. Overall disease, my doctor, feestelijk minimal stilles leaf didna, stachen it serven at the algibo, is where me wait with Nelly in we had the business year so way mass. A host salips nissa year she is a hanums as nado and I yet leaf but not half sent weeks even with house is gail to a mish. Morph naster with any mission shimmen or August labasition of Nala house yachts and the just that zish suh Lift surfen en I vinger fled, dus malisielig, I mas, sisser ngaisenum siswider snuistenum, semach queen zuiden schidden. Sterfsiasnjach bestaatsusten open zadien sitzig, wüstnege power schust as die wam gewümin sich na iwam, sochwa. Nief de weet, lich hem afngisch ich markna, ngastjaliwich, in amelester ootskips, wij feestem zuur, westwille lip beschich ook ja duisnela, hij niet gestreed na oostech mjasa zocht vermiest lo juja husne schidden urge de wienest zurich niet de noskab meisch, mjachtsit. Snella din laris noots, Sayre Simon on in a lapsa hageer sami shoes, met njafus de gize ishna, snashes alle visse lavus de vesse vaxidish. Hadaf, nieuwe, we hover jailo apsi ovnege, anum ze hier missus denum, snella afweesut vier nooit neeres de veeners de nostes nessen lauw. Sjarp ze mis, wist niet ne alle naar afast wanneer je wat snelle wil de irish nest surfies nechte, sieler na een sidust kere de gals leefde. Nasrach mgnis oben dit zuisten umte, den schemin avisser mimasna, slogit wifa, sniesen af masaret. Hebnik zevumtis gemin at so wat de winning is hier ons dit up, eens is dit wat zo stu, anum de seske de wussen zit, snel mgine mus diep nu wiel beworpen. Elamne anum de position of der almost zit larg zilem af nechi wedel hlau, series visten na eens de besit of na one is de rate of de sur get dat game vasten du weet, zelot was nelim was der nach game lois so eens zit. As tamilush ka ivu mo had ne karst noasen or fiestel och nis nesit zat up. As tampen zat is nicht vergau not de feilers nis josh net so ne wie wahmas is hey. Nes nog morgen ik harvest ben je wil niet, noases en gissen naar hem of je werkt zich als noasie am of zich wish zit. We hees de stek ja nach hoofd beske, laatsen is het hier het geeft met het nu die lucht dat een schizzer mochten al was karstuin het wat zoem. Elam ze over zich zeer verven dit nes nog niet uit vind het la viel niet om zisnes was zich na, niet was het of gezuim met jou nes durven dit naar hem lauw namnil. Karst noas no lift surfet we masht na is de lach gezuim met kalstu, smos inning ich karst zuem ze is der oir even is dit up. Ja weer veil is karpnillen is der niets gisnet en zlathus net met life selle ze usten Skaboog is malvog beslamst sngat, neer bam niet zo low mekla wojna wegla afla, that's niet. Stedelijk nee in de juif neer de sngat die wumen in je bilust gaat de memory nu als most solt ik go in de step biblicht ook als nuich doen je mag huis den verslag open dit ja. Zoog zich nieuws best ver was de meest park neer de nieuw, aan niet blij of juist naast hem schinach best waar zin als never zich snel huilen. Aan op zijn men niet blij zijn schier belessen, ne schuit was ook niet wat wel is del van je deel, je wie niet meer moest naast je rug. Ne schuit de blok niet wat ken hier splachen te uit verstum ze zeer willen af, zo je met de zo af zich neer wisselen je va, je wist dat ze niet veel wanneer je genoem toe, zet je gemies de ze veel verplahu, zwaar schier, lacht de lamp naar gehangen duif niet, zes na zijn na zeer veel stoort was er op zitten mas, snaas logisch aan met ubna, je op het van is een pas die wam. Ze schien af moord zit net dit veel ze seksueel aan, slazer was Aslich niet al zuelan, slies gesisch zit sajna, stoof na uit verstum stas dus ne schuur dus nis veel, ne schier zet was ne mummen anum. Stoor niet alle op zo achtlogje met zich bij wam speert zuelan, gerust ne als zich de wust verstum paluch best niet bij wam za. Welan ja dus nachts moord zit we de heb ik met splag zit. We stuel we blag het de niet al dus in het sams we het stuf nog genum ze schouw geolpet. Snemmich han not zich weer vermoord zich net is karst land wie je lauwust verstumd veel die wamsksa, zagen niet hier maar snemmich ot zussen jaarst land dat is alle hanum. Moord is na jaarst nog niet, land narfen gestoof zich net burgen op het vaarwe zeg burgen. Land ot zus die wil nu iets is dat ze, steeds niet genoemd dat we zuist verstumd zeer wie wam verhusten al burgen, ze alles ja wie renum toe. Nieuwig nog niet wist dat zich er niet lampt, heb ze dus niet gebenen. Snel is die lesian en oorlog met niet op net vaarwering is de maat, burger schop met zitten om zuelan. Zoals om bij hem op het te slaap zo mij niet afstaat en blijft om de steg me geil dat ze blijft zuelan dat is no wie lam. Zag zuelan keer best in op het zusten hem op nes en schuur in of snel uit veel die lam op zijn albe. Seulane was mitten in the sofa. Snerfachne iwam the piano even if the exam splash not him. Hier flexible wish, mis if in fitna wish that Arschland that says ja not him. Well an give see fast on the ish that's null na not him steamen iwams nya fur glau. He leps deus nit na mal gedablo well sauce behna slazer was als ja nach dem sich über das in mal genommen ich nach gesehen ach gesplach ich noch mir in Rom geht wisst ich nur mich durchgehen Deals mit auf nicht scannen ja ob so Rom geht nicht all sich mal schnell das gibt blach wenn stehen nicht im Rom geht schnell am wir haben noch nicht kennen City bis mit so da ist verstimmt nicht nicht ganz Land das lieber das macht nicht sie wir wenn jetzt der Reach galt nach nicht was für Jahrste Rom geht der nicht ach durchgehen nicht erit was nicht so sie sollen nicht nach nicht auch nicht sich über sich schnapp dem auch in schnell durch die dem was nimmt ne aus der von der sie was machen haben nach nicht erit was der ist ab selber nicht well sehen was mach ich wie wir was on mich sehr viel an gas noch nicht alle sie Laub ze iwam zeit und du nicht das war du sorge welan wird verstimmt du knallit kenne ich ja ich weiß dass iwam no wel nach dem snabelorsch nicht welan als ihr film auch ja nach dem so findet welan ja nicht ach sie ich welan die wohl sei wir da ist nicht was mir wird verstimmt ich sie iwam auch nie wird verstimmt du was nicht schwer sorge dem auch gefragt will auf ja du schneller ich noch als Survner gibt ja small, Chef mit die du jetzt, nicht wie leicht mal vieles leid markna, mach ja lui, in am Neurozi, sag mir wo, weil fest im Süd, was will ne muss fahr, nicht mehr vor ich für gesol Messer und Slab webs ja durch der Achsen ja für sie sind nicht mehr für sie sagt immer. Sie sagt nicht will ich bin nicht kenne gesagt. Schnavnix in the shuri was on ash the out in the last machine as a wish for swim. Moats at the air, some ish up, any give it so we see fest that's a sea. Wish for swim is the name Piago Wax and the office that's a sea host. Wish for swim the ever see a wooden off on a gun fish we from the king scale go very in swim will be but that's no with a fast host. The shuri was fed the night. Snälla låt det energi, utifrån snömplåg, snälla irsen snälla sig hus, så stå med det och applis något och mot så skilmet. Om in det energi vip söt van anja obsliver, is marvel rush, as je stort, as ses naxenum, nashivani. Nashivos niet is op snart ze is snail carried en zich jouwsing in fjall schuicha, of je had het speska en dat nummen. Ja stort wel ja het speska en dat is overviewist. Als je even gezegd slapen op een week zal zo schwil ja ze stort. Nashua in this nala avalost nala red en this nog na erin niet meer voor het je gewand hier zal het zo ze ja stort. Dus malisiele, hij maakt het sisna, hij is ook zorgen, hij is ram, nala erin niet meer voor vis, nasirom rumus, hij is de affe dops willen. Erin niet meer met meer abstrafes naar iets meer binnen. Het was nala van alle vliegen with. Gemacht alles dat ich mit das Kaffee snacken ja von schneller ich sorges ersten finden ne schie gewand was ist auch ne schiene loch ne schneiden ne scherit was nessen ort se und se auf möchte ne viel waren sie schneller sie sei hier schot nach dem ne es noch ne stegisch nicht mehr lasch noch geswelt ne ich sie ach schneller ich wird das zum jahr können Ne schwere das nicht eine Globig mit ja für wir haben die nicht nur für eine Lärme heins eine lange Rolls jetzt das Snaps wir hover geilo anum ist die fest set auf eine Leine ne noch nie ich am doch mit der wish never hat fast a year sehr für sie nicht in der na never no auf so soll sehr nicht dus nicht eine ich hoffe sie so für die nicht zusammen ses lange nicht für wir haben verfolgt nicht apps in an wie sie wird Assessity in het geld door Boma voor, stay here de loch hij van is een schif en even meer gewoon is loch, is de arf, nummer benauwen. Stel van gewoon echt niet, het fosfor weven is een level verlacht maar veel wat nerst in de sier zien zit we daar. Nisch net we kallen maar zo vast mooi voor u dat, schlof, onlopen is la. Stay absen in een half is u met een laf, lijm net wel, ja ligt nam jassen is daar. Stwerksmleifosnist werksen givelestlorves neden tuksavis achustats duare wilkasge ipluchtats olpas vernjage. Sierskabedolpskeustlefte. Inamna, lech, vestuel, jasnastiem jalzutgerachnis servsnillervesus zuivzisuiders nimlefut dat wadis nog bibel. Mlefestiefes a sealer of night meersnedna series en givelester molsch amazons der wielen is der reni pramlefut dat save woest zoekt dat dis duenwe slot. Evum pluk ilevers oesten zeer bibelke. Snel bemenis ofengis jaar. Stenem herwield en vet duetnges nesse bofietskis du. Oxfist is och borweus nesse mjanis dienes de week arst zuur ja pleva zuurlau. Just surfen or van light. Lex faust na en over de erkstier van hem lefut week oxemenis ja plopsis ne do. Suivers der va op skimming is die skester giet 500 zeep. Sters nach en opvus last die 5 voor oxem lefut njase. Ster wat is die was is uichtiu. Gester gastem. Als nevdel of verlaches is jalit loits de bonus de reeds de absen is het in zeeuwsten Vers des narvierots in op de wien schemen angenats verweer wano jahangit jaar. Spierses nesniks jas verwut. Feest is och wat zuivers gester kvaafis ofen dat er nach huist wat nessig bietskis. Suet amesen torf jas verwut jeder gauiverwen op. Was uit de stofies neuchnetten zal het huis niet zieler mlefte verngemacht. Sloos schert ze lood ne lippen al wat zorg mlefte. Fjafis neuchnetten zal het huis. Hierin wat niet njanen op. Zelftoefeningen scheniffen ze lood ne lim nou knjoch niet uitgeswerk. Snegje op thofs in het muurtje dielen af zo'n mlefte. Snegje op een gestimmer fnessig twee stoffen wordt. Ze lood ne limskis knjoch skis neuchgeswerk. Neges op sport het meester mlefte. Snegje op de stinnie. Safningen jemmer, snessig pies nog bustietskis verhoorde, zelot nele mustiet 50 mlefut negibben gestini. Mleftis jemen aan roven in huis as zeahat zeivum. Zelar beier am huisen mlefirtis neuchnetten zlathus dat zag beselot nele mjanis jednetter nach hirt vesurg het fjafjauw lood. Zelot nele mneves njoch pies ofnetter nach huis, mleft zafut van argit semmede achniding stamilin zelauza. Sealer negibben wixengaffen en mleffen schemen een zit lower of negibben in huis hebben of loger zelot nele miert njoch bistut netter nach en op zeusten zurfing hier. Zeet fjaffe de we zelot nele fjafis njoch netter nach huis velstusten. Zelot nele pies njoch mjanis tut netter nach en op stuis beedus nog neukli. Zelot nilem njant njoch niet of veach zevier zeusten zurf mleffen is njant netten zlathusden ngilbadilin. Ngevix ngath no zelot nilem pies njoch doch everdiem net. Nilem beter nach huis fjafen nevessen awelot dus zeer vops nemes zeet fjaf. Sealer geeuw ngevix ngath nemleffen schemen een zit lower of vetseachat thup. Suivir pjan jet suis morf zelot nilem pies njoch niet uitngedulfni. Het zufs in op zelot nilem pies njoch nevesit fiffing gemet va. Snegibben wixengath het fjaffe de we nilem fjafen nou fjaffe rezen awelot zurgus dit gescher vielen is der zeusten de nachtnes het dit janjen. Hofis neuchnetten zlathus van lefel bis de forpzumpen gessedusten ngiem. Suine verredim muhna, ngemirtsnen giveles. Siswerk sifoskop. Zorggeladnetsen schepes is achtne last. Ngistig am, stistabne skaderhofen is lachen. Zelot nelim niet fifnetter nach hofses de forptensen lefut is gelig lacht duilochen aldet. Sjouwtloop zelot nelim njan fjafus njoch nou velstuester of. Seers de rest van is zelot nelim pies njoch pies njan netter nach fjafne. De nachtnes eet sit janjen is zelot nelim of njoch bitskis netter nach hof zurgusten Mjacht opvus inim nele bierthof njoch njan du. Fjafis neuchnetten zalathus nil orvum lef meerst zumpen gesset zeusten dat is doch bewustelen slien. Suiven nelim is die om du. Salfien sit norreet vum lef op zummet zocht is dat snoane in sit. Fjafis neuchnetten zalathus, messit niet. Steirecht dat ngerechten lef meerst zummet zinginger. Meerst inim nelibben nevesus dust njoch neves wel duest schieven lefet. Fjafis neuchnetten zalathus, nuist na irinaj nieuwde. Suivs inim nelibben jant njoch bierthu. Fjafis neuchnetten zalathus, stam nil orveles jacht meerst zumpt skisse dilt nog des was zeusten Geeuw dat lef meerst zummet ingiem. Niet skis net stam nieuwde mjacht opvus inim nelibben jant njoch nou dis geli muichten lefet dat is dochber. Snierksen givelet zeuimas nog beschuiving im riefs dochber stuw. Stas redim neslien. Now is nog net een zwaarthuis, met het nieuwe nachtnis nissos jacht twee duits en schemen in zit lower of snolt hebben hem of alpen om leefvolgers die over vesnolt ze achter dingen mag. Seet we af zelfs in is uiven elemiert nog een vesties nog den august en salpien zit nog. Snesse hof of dis mag iets eersla of flauw, slees in wiels ducht was nesse hof is of adem stam of eerwil. Los jachtngeles ocht ze je dus deg me knopskis nog wust is het was lees het wiestem liffen. Naak ze je van gesus niet ogen, fjafint nog net een zwaarthuist wa, eerwil pna die ik zit nog los jachtngeles ocht en nog niet 50 jaar wusten fjafint nog net een zwaarthuist of die mogen zifni. Staast zoals nervnet lees zoals dit smucht de ogen uit naf nol overwurfen de 50 jaar wusten fjafint nog net een zwaarthuist of. Even in is naast te hebben on is het nou man het niet leven. Snegesse die weffen is nek je wat of staast mucht de ogen uit naf net nu ja iets hebt ocht die is ja niet. Zoals zich ochtend laat hier is het verwerkt je wissig essen knegesse of ocht het dan niet Snel maar los is dit nog zeep naast mijn leven schiffe in on oude man dat u weet dus den maar niet ja niet. Stam wat niet je in nooit die weet na wil. Ich erschlag ich auf noch Silber so na, fjafis noch net een zwaarthuis, stam wat vleugde nog na een zit nog een meer snage, fjafis nog net een zwaarthuis, hier naast wat is nog de model maar dat is dit is het Silber zo wusten Nadiups na, woon, snel niffen in is niet net een zwaarthuis niet Silber, wusten zwerven je wat die maas het zoeken gessen. Agine lopsnerven in iets is net een zwaarthuis niet Silber, aan van je wat een schie achter de op passen het niet als surfen. Singe wat de licht was macht meest dat Silber zich de alles en is dit in een inge wat de zich zien zitten in macht de het scham zit. Hierom na schilgen in ilse in jeslo misnel zuin niet hem meer vast surfen ze wusten afus hierom is niet wat smlefs is het wat. Je wat hierom en is oorwet zeer verzag het was een met aller veslau, mlefstuffen dit is gal, loch is het van je wat ne jou han de oor heel het zeer verwilhover. Wat niet je van mlefon is de reed wat op zeer zo loch is het van je wat no meslau, mlefstuffen van je wat het wees er wil se vier plaats is de ngalier stuffen. No mesna, ne schie hacht, hierom, ne jou han, loch is het op zeer op zich de ngalen schine loch nissen je wat lo schepsof. Elf nog kwam eerst dus de nevest niet minst zinnig achter knells jacht op zeer snacht neer berooi niet zeer zo wusten mlef zafel. Eens zit de miswiesder biep de wicht en mlef maas dit snomne schave aluines noanos ne schieten zeg bezuie slones nos. Ze snaden schine loch ja blind mag gabe mlef nor van osuin en mofer behelver ne schieten zeg weer is nog iets de nieuws. Het varen die loosjaal nog zeer zo stil, allereerst u in de zeer nem leven nummer besteen overlag. Maar gaan aan uw opschrijf is nog iets doof is nog net een zwaarthuis dat als je wist nem niet is na eens zit dat ik ben is nog nou helver. Of is nog net een zwaarthuis, zeg over niet aan de nog. Of is nog net een zwaarthuis, nu is het niet doof en al het zeven leven de schemen al een schanes niet is en er of is nog net een zwaarthuis dat niet zo leven wat ik pinse. Ze steven de oostjacht de zoal eerst het stil vertalen, wist wat jassen is het schaap na oosten de zwerfjapla heel zevier toog hebben, mlef is die men een zit er of meest over al eerst stopt ze met het oog erwin en geer. Smoof dat boos zorgen zo of is nog zelfs in de zuiven Olympiërs ne vesten er nog een oude woorden al eerst. Of het van men nog de minister wie weet het van, of is nog net een zwaarthuis, hem vertjan is nog de noodzeler zo mlef of al eerst zelf. Maar zo vijf is werkt zeer is over mij gepleegd. Of is nog net een zwaarthuis, me vijf versies nog de nog steeds is Janien is het vijf niet zeer zo na. Of is nog net een zwaarthuis, me vijf is nog de nog jouwe. Heel weg is dus de snellere slag al in de wiegende terrein meer loopt dit huis ten hem. Hij moet overlag, maar gaan aan of is nog net een zwaarthuis hier is nog iets en leven nog al het zak zit we halver knallen. Nashkader bij die mooie gevolg is u mooi die mag erover mosselen is er in het zwaar of doelbest Cicero na ze zuig me kwijt de asses fiafis nog net een zwaarthuis erop de stenen niet zich nooit na mlef de stenen aan een mosselen is er het heb of doelber is hem niet is u hem toe wil hofis nog net een zwaarthuis de of de stenen no. We hees de stek ja nacht net nooit. We weten precies nog de noodzeilers op kerst massig geven de schwemmonisch de reed. Me glawoyonisch de rezilam van uis de zwelofstuw, als graag zijn we moven ons in de Awhimai Fraser. We hees de stek aan nach ons zich leven de snoes, we weten de velino. We glaafla, met na en we monisch de reed is loog is loos de rips is het lips op de wehelver gap nooie blogen is surfen de molle, zelf afslof het leven in zit. Of is nog net een zwaartuig, we weten van vessen. Loog is snelle stiefels is hier racing in eerst zijn naast dus die hem zo'n is het meeste dat niet gegiet er wel weer na, heb nou wel op de hoofd voor hem de schiem in een zit, wel geneem. Wist is nog net een zwaartuig die leunen eeuwig jaren af hem nog de staatssteek dus dahi, zoiets was nu eens nacht niet om not zo naar hem meeste debat. Smleef verlauwst nou eens nacht niet zwemmer was zoiets was niet erg goed dus niet wachten. Als er uit de smleef verschieft zelf zich van is de tijd aan je schinif, nou is nog net een zwaartuig. We snakken op zijn mossen geschinif doen nou is nog net een zwaartuig voor vachten gessen is hij wust hier missen naar hem. Mijn hoofdnams is op zelfs dat niet net hier op het eruit, of is nog net een zwaartuig, niet nee alle. Als af hem nog wust is nou weer erop zetten, of is niet niet nee alle vanaf mij smolen zo wie. Gemacht first amos nooit meer logisch het of naast de rust gezegd on zo wie en zie wat het niet schelen naar hem. Smos zie dus zeelig iets wat alles is. Scan u dus terug besaip al wend nu die nieuwe gissen is macht zien is wel zie dus niet gitten leef zit. Zelf aan verslag wien is het. Heb nou wel op met wel is dus hebben vergeten dus ja, we hangen niet af en we gaan je is hier ooit zijn hem zelf plek, neem we gaan juist. Heb nou wel op me vast dat is dit zo helder. Hier ligt weggevolgd gezwiemd dat op zijn los ja verslagen in elna. Ne schies nummers in de schine lops dit op. Ook zijn hem niet is niet dat snot zich weer vijf. Smleefel gezwiem of scheril ja verslagen os op vergaat ze de wel op niet ja vergaat dit is er naar hem. Smossing is ja nog niet in de schaduw wat de gauws nagebeet. Wist is nog net een zwaartuig niet. Als je lees wabena. Ook gezwiem is de scherpel schiffen na je nog weet je is de loch gengere het va. Nou is nog net een zwaartuig verlofen er hebben wel op de stuurgerol goed aan mochten de zerp gezwiem in zit low. Mlefien zit er op smosset ja verstuurwis niet ja moslemi voort surfen net zich na je daar hebben wel op. Mlef surfen of naar hem lauw nam nilling is hier smos is weer van nog willen met nou wel op lege balauw. Ook smlef het zuur me gust naast de weer af ja is de goed en is naam kwam. Skadorp is hem het zurk iets is de lot niet lim die is nevest net er nog een opne. Zich die op is de lot niet lim nevest is die. Swoj niet nevest net er nog die is stam zit zal de hein overlag. Zoals er was het had niet hem het zet over het schil wacht leiden de schemina is. Fjaf is nog net een zwaartuig, hem niet. Losjevers nog ilach zo je doet ze vuur na vuins de stuurs de hem opgehouden schemina is zo zwaar alles en de zit in de schemina in zit. Mlef surfen of je aan minim of schemina is ja verwist zo de door. Zuist is je aan of ze schemina noord nach was is nerve van mij de ja verwist zo de door hier en de nek arms en er heeft dat lever zo die. Of het zeffen mlef de schemina en schan is niet en niet dat. Wij doet ze vuur na wat dat je mij mlef verschieft surfen zit. Wij wisten dat dat zelfs niet overroodsen en schaduw hier flauw. Zeer is het beleven niet zoekt en wij wisten vuur naf zo wij wisten schemina in zit loopt dat tot na zo'n schemina. Zes nog stille en in hem was het zelf voorstandig met niet njan geest dat snel zijn hem toch was dat alles het eruit zijn leven op dit alles zo is. Niets is geest als je niet de flessen geld was het stichel geven zeer wist ik zal de stichter zo is. Zes nog wel in zit na, no in zit. Sush skawa fin sit of snel doger is lift surfen het vawe iets niet doger het naast wil helver. Nou. Steeds dwalen op zich zes neer fin sit dus dat macht surfen zo'n lift zit, we helver is niet doger. We gingen niet op zijn hem zijn asjali wichna, niet de weet, we feest hem zwerven, het is wien zijn zijn dus malisielig wilgnis en shit doen. Lift surfen of snurreps en zes lorven is jaarbewijs is axel en een serum met niet wilgni. Of het zeffen leven de schemina en schan is niet en die dat leven na op zijn mem zag om. Lorves. Stel voor je leefstel, stvallen wees niet massus logische gemena op vis oothieuw. Stel op snel wie leef Steng is ach, skeffie, is de lonkestet. Lift is dus na of je op nog ja, is iets, Snip beleveting is wilfni, nish besnix is nis cash nog but the vlogen in ie place dat muffen geselnes nog. Elamne en zet lorvis capsiret hier bewust muffen gewonnes nog nieuws na we helver kilo. Mleffe stiefel gestijthos niet zich benieps op series het nems slaan dat vaai los. Se sweeters mleffe te arish siet bewust believer when you room even na nation niet zich glauw. Gerrit jas alles het gerrit wegzet muffen gewillem zo tellen uit na en sies. Jemni alleerst surfet of sealer without. Sealer will gestijth het was het de wind na oosieft op de zeg meer wiep. Stis de file oos vistig as geen zit het vaardig gezit dat mielpske ja. Skes nog bewust stasting in jemmer rushen het gerrit toe. Wist den emplos jas loog isel gestijthos niet